ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Power Vacuum. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting subject that a lot of people in the game industry have been discussing for quite a while now. IGN published this article. The AAA video game bubble has burst. Video games have never been more popular, technically impressive, easily accessible to players, but the games industry has certainly seen better days. Skyrocketing budgets of AAA projects and diminishing returns on live service games have resulted in over 23,000 jobs in the video game industry. In the video game industry were lost in 2 years. That's just poor. On live service games have resulted in over 23,000 jobs in the video game industry were lost in 2 years. Okay. Yeah. All right. Get a copy editor, IGN. I know you can afford one. It's just a bad sentence. Over 30 video game development studios have ceased operation, including Arcane Austin, Volition, and most recently Firewalk Studios. While games as a service can be extremely lucrative, some projects have never seen the light of day, like Naughty Dog's canceled The Last of Us Online. This is the first I'm hearing about this. The Last of Us Online? What would you possibly do? Like, it's a linear one-person story that has an extremely, set-in-stone ending. On the other hand, some games do come out in some form, only to be pulled offline, like Sega's Hyenas, which never made it past a public beta, or PlayStation's massive flop, Concord. Massive flop. You guys were saying that this game, might see a revival, not but a month ago. Which was completely taken offline just 2 weeks after launch. What's the solution? There's no clear answer. But smaller projects could allow for more innovation. After all, look at recent indie hits like Balatro, Animal Well, and UFO 50, which were made by small teams. You know what they made? They made fun games that people want to play. You know what they didn't do? Put modern day politics or push some sort of social agenda. And what's the solution? That's the solution. Make fun games that people want to play that don't push modern day politics or some sort of agenda. If your game has an agenda, it needs to be an in-game, in-fantasy world agenda that the characters are trying to push. Like in Final Fantasy VI, when Kafka destroyed the world and was trying to convince people it was a good thing. That was an agenda that Kafka was pushing in the game, but it wasn't tied to real world politics. It wasn't tied to real world social structures or standings. That's what people are tired of. They're tired of being preached to. They want to escape reality when they play a video game. They don't want a slice of reality in their video game. That's what was driving people away. That's why Concord failed. It used modern day politics and modern day social standards to create a game that was supposed to be set in a science fiction world. And that's not escapism. That's a lecture. Is that the whole article? Wow. Okay. I thought there was going to be more to this article, but I guess not. But I just wanted to point out, IGN saying that the AAA video game bubble has burst is quite alarming, considering they have been towing the line for the AAA studios since the beginning. Now, some people might argue Nintendo is not a AAA company. Some people argue that it is. Facts be mattered. It is a AAA company. They make top-of-the-line games. They are a major publishing company with boundless resources, it seems. And this was the very first thing ever published by IGN. This is the original name of their first website. It was called N64.com. It later changed to IGN64.com. But this is what you came to when you first discovered this webpage all the way back in 1996. If you've made it this far, you're more than just a gamer. You're an N64 fan. You're otaku, which this phrase used to mean just lover of things Japanese. Now it's completely different. We won't go into that. You want information on the hottest new console in the history of video games, and you want it quickly, without the junk. Up to the minute news, the latest screenshots and QuickTime videos, exclusive interviews and previews, code, stuff that no one's ever seen before, and then some. That's us, N64.com. We're daily, dedicated to bringing you our viewers the facts and opinions straight from the sources themselves. Howard Lincoln, Shigeru Miyamoto, Hiroshi Yamauchi. We're worldwide. Our diehard game journalists gather news from Japan, Europe, and the US, as well as from all the major shows: E3, Shoshinkai, ECTS, Tokyo Toy Show, and others without missing a beat. We're live. As a community, hardcore gamers live and breathe video games, and we're here to listen and respond. It's not just a one-way street. If there's something you've got to let someone know, give us a call. We'll check it out. Or do you need to know a code? Sick and tired of the rumors? We'll give you the skinny. It's a pretty short article. Our sections break into 5 navigable areas. In fact, we're going the extra lengths to make sure navigability is quick and simple. In news is your daily diets and updates, in-depth features and interviews with the industry's major players. In games is made up of the stuff gamers love, insightful previews and steely-eyed reviews, often included bonus sidebars and helpful sections. In codes focuses on game strategies, cheats, codes, and complete walkthroughs, while in data provides you with the background info every gamer should know. That leaves us with otaku, translated loosely to superfan. Oh, okay, it literally translates to obsessive geek, but if the shoe fits. A section that will constantly accumulate and grow. Otaku gives you an insight into the images and sounds that deep consumer culture of Nintendo. Everything from Yoshi shampoo bottles to Mario tattoos are here from your viewing, downloading, googly-eyed pleasure. Find something interesting yourself, give us a holler, and we'll put it up to the gallery. And if we decide to use it, we'll give you a nice reward, in addition to full credit on the site. Blah, blah, blah. Please let us know. Thank you for that. Report any bugs. I think it says that, right? Yeah. This was their original site, dedicated to a AAA game company. Their next site that came out, I think, was dedicated to the PlayStation. So, and they had a couple more sites that came out around the same time. All of them were just basically dedicated to AAA gaming, because at the time, those were the only people making games. You didn't have all these indie devs. You didn't have like little indie studios or small creator things, or like crowdsourcing that, player-backed games. Those didn't exist at the time. It was just the people with tons of money making games. And this article is, in my mind, a little too late. Because, as IGN is, they used to be the forefront of news. They used to be at the beginning, the source, and now they're behind the times. They used to be ahead of it, now they're behind. And that's just kind of what happens when you get too big, or you lose sight of what it is you actually care about. IGN no longer cares about video games. They just don't. You're not going to convince me that they do. When there was a period in time where almost every game that came out, they just gave a 7. It's like the joke score, that IGN's lowest score is a 7, right? That was a meme for a while. And now they're just known for being a trash rag. They just push whatever they're told. They appear to have bought and paid for reviews. They don't seem to be a genuine company anymore. It seems they've fallen by the wayside. In fact, let's look at the comments on this article and see what we got down here. Nope, live service games have failed because most of the players didn't want them, IMO. Good games with single-player narratives have done well. But to spend all this money on a game that forces you to work with other players or replaces a great narrative with flashy seasons is a problem. Really? You cut off you cut off Blim? All right. Never understood the push toward live service games. Some genre it fits, but you want to turn everything into that style so you can nickel and dime the gamers. That isn't good. Torture says, make good games that gamers will want to play and do not become seduced by live service models, microtransactions, or ESG scores. Right there, ESG scores. That is a problem that people have. ESG scores were things that were heavily being influenced by the people funding games because they were basically like, I think it stands for environmental social governance, and people don't want to be preached at. Video games are an escape from reality. You are constantly being preached to in reality. You're being preached to by your teachers if you're in school. You're being preached to by your boss if you'll have a job. You're being preached to by your parents if you live at home. You're being preached to by your landlords if you live in a neighborhood or an apartment and they're like got all these rules that you have to follow. You're being preached to online by all these companies, and you don't want to put in a video game, get transported to a fantasy world, and then someone be like, "Hey, let me preach at you real quick about shit you're dealing with in the real world on top of, this fantasy world. But I need to take a minute and we need to talk about the rising sea levels of Earth. Or we need to talk about pronouns and how people identify themselves." It's like, bro, I don't want to do that. I just want to kill fucking dinosaurs. Like, that's what I'm here for. That's a thing. I understand this comes off as trite, but in the wake of Concord, Veilguard, and Star Wars Outlaws, we need to reiterate basic concepts like make games that gamers will want to play. If you want a masterclass in how to do this, see Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, or even the upcoming Path to Exile 2, which will be live service but made by actual ARPG fans. I don't know about Path to Exile 2 yet. I tried playing the first Path to Exile and I was kind of bored. I couldn't explain why. It had like all the hallmarks. Just some games I don't find interesting. Like, what was it, Darkstalkers 2? When Darkstalkers came out, I enjoyed the hell out of it. When 2 came out, they announced all the changes and updates and how the system was going to work. I was like, man, this is everything I wanted Darkstalkers 1 to have. They put in Darkstalkers 2, and the game just didn't interest me. It was boring. I put like 15 hours into it, and then I just never picked it up again. Just happens with some games. So maybe Path to Exile 2 will be the opposite of 1, where it will be interesting. I might try it. I don't know. We'll see. This person says that's still not a solution. I find that most of these AAA games are just too bloated. Bloated as in hours required to complete. Somehow, upper management thinks that because we are making a very expensive game, it should last more than 30 hours. The problem many of them run into is that... Come on now. Uh-oh. Site go down? Well, I guess this guy's opinion was too spicy because I can't see the rest of it. No, wait. Yeah, I want to see what this guy has to say. There we go. They normally have 10 to 15 hours of content and bloat the rest to let it feel like, I think he meant feel, like they are telling this grand tale, and that bloat often let person stop caring and put it aside to finish sometime in the future. Sure, Call of Duty costs $7, but that's 8 to 10 hours span. The story last is very good. I don't know about that. RPGs that go beyond 40 hours need to stop. Consistent to around that, but give New Game Plus. Previous generations, they had the pace right. Now they've gone mad because of new tech, and thus they've lost that charm. Bigger isn't always better in the terms of gaming. Also, microtransaction when it comes to cosmetics sells a lot, so I don't see them stopping that. Let's check something. Final Fantasy 7 completion. No. Gameplay hours. No, I want the original. It takes around 36 hours to complete, or you could take up to 80 and a half hours if you wanted to 100% it. Um, so 36 hours. Yeah, I was gonna say I remember Final Fantasy VII being long even if you blitzed it. I remember Final Fantasy VI being long even if you blitzed it. Like how long was Final Fantasy VI? Not Final Fantasy 67. We're going way in the future. Final Fantasy VI about 34 hours. Yeah, I don't think this person played RPGs that much back in the day. Considering they say Call of Duty is a $70 game, that's good, very good. And the story lasts, whatever that means. Span the story lasts is very good. I don't think they've played a lot of RPGs. I just think they probably don't enjoy them because, 40-hour RPGs was kind of the norm. Like, that's what you were expecting. When you got into an RPG game, you were expecting to be able to put 40 hours of gameplay into this just in general. And that's, like I said, that's conservative because that's assuming that you're just going straight through the story and maybe doing some spot grinding here or there so that battles aren't difficult, or maybe you like the difficulty being maximum so you blitz the story and make it as hard as you can. Because, back in the day, games didn't have difficulty. Like, From Software games are traditional old school RPG style games where they don't have difficulty. The game is one difficulty, figure it out. You didn't hear people complaining back in the day that Zelda, the Legend of Zelda was a difficult game. Because it is. Go back and play The Legend of Zelda. Go play the original Legend of Zelda from Nintendo. That's a hard as hell game. Like, it is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Let's see what Super Chili Dogs has to say. Realistically, there's only going to be a handful of live service games that do well enough to survive. Gamers are only going to pay attention to the absolute best of them because those games are a big investment of time and money. Two things a lot of people don't have these days. What does he say? Call me an ist? We playing Diablo 2 now? This fucking site. The real problem, most $200 million budget games aren't fun at all. Oh, here we go. Call me an ist. Oh, Isterphobe. Okay. I thought for a second he was making a Diablo 2 reference because ist is a rune. The fact of the matter that gamers don't like being preached to or pandered to. Well, some gamers like being pandered to. And what are we calling pandering? Like, that's a loose thing. Preaching? No. Nobody wants to be preached to. Not at all. Not ever. They also need to focus on making games better, not just bigger. My biggest problem with the making a better game thing now is there's so much focus on, like, graphical fidelity and how good does this game look, and oh my god, you can see the shadows on each blade of grass. I don't give a shit because that doesn't really make a game better. Because if you look at graphics from about 5 to 6 years ago and graphics now, they really haven't changed that much. Like, we hit like a wall with graphics at the beginning of the latest console generation, right? PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, they have peaked with graphical fidelity almost. Like PC, yeah, people are like, oh, you get 120 frame rates and you get so many frames that your brain can't even comprehend it, and the graphics are so high that your machine's gonna overheat unless it's like oil cooled and ridiculous shit like that. It's but then you look at the games and you're like, this isn't so beautiful that it's changing my life. Like, the jump from 2D pixel graphics to 3D graphics from, like, Super Nintendo to Nintendo 64 was like life-changing for players. And then the jump from like Nintendo 64 from 64-bit to 128-bit made a huge difference. And then graphics just got better every like generation until around 5-6 years ago they just stopped getting better, and then they started looking at the little things. The blades of grass, the leaves, the way the water flows, ray tracing. You can see how light reacts to the environment as it moves, and it's like, who gives a shit? Like, I just want to have a fun game. Like, Doom doesn't need 120 frames per second and ray tracing to be fun. Okay? I still will play, well, I don't play the original Doom that much, but I play Doom 2 every once in a while. I just pop it on and I'm like, I'm going to play some OG Doom 2. It's still fucking fun, right? I still play Bethesda Doom, the remake where they like actually put like a bunch of lore into the game. I play that Doom pretty regularly because it's fucking fun. Like, it didn't need this stupid high fidelity shit. You know what looks really cool in just Xbox 360 graphics? Ripping a demon in half with a chainsaw. You know what looks really cool in Unreal Engine 5 on a PC with all the fucking bells and whistles? Ripping a demon in half with a chainsaw. Like, these are just things that are fun. They don't have to look super ridiculous. But, you know, that's just my opinion. And I could be wrong. But that's how I feel about it. I think we have hit a graphical wall. I don't know if we need to progress any further. I think they should. Just, you know, graphics look great as they are. Just work on the story. Work on developing character. Work on developing, like, more realistic motion. I don't give a shit about the environment looking super hyper realistic. My video game does not need to look like a photo or like an HD movie. It just needs to look like a video game, and it needs to play like a video game. And yes, I do think AAA games, I think this bubble burst several years ago, and it was just a slow motion burst. Like, it wasn't like an actual bubble popping where it just vanishes. It was more like, you know how, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a slow motion pop. Like, it swelled up, and then it was more like you had a big balloon instead of a bubble, and then you put a pinhole in it. And it didn't burst, but it slowly leaked the air out until people were starting to notice, like, hey, this balloon's not a great balloon, and it's not holding air anymore. It's just kind of coming out. And that's where I think we're at. I think IGN's behind the times. And this video is running on a little long, so I'm going to call it there. Because I've run out of stuff to really ramble about without getting into too much nitty gritty. Belmont out.